tayo ngayon ng isang taong patuloy pa rin tumatanggi, sumailalim sa isang pampublikong hair follicle drug test. At nagsinungaling sa 20 pesos ang bigas.
Mayo 12, huwag na po kayong mag-isip ng malalim. Basta tingnan ninyo, all the way Alyansa! All the way Alyansa! All the way Alyansa! Mabuhay ang Alyansa para sa bagong Pilipinas!
Bilang Pilipino, bilang Pilipino.
In just less than 35 hours, polling precincts across the country will open to millions of Filipinos in one of the most consequential elections in Philippine history.
But before that, candidates are in the last few hours of their campaign as the official campaign period for Bilang Pilipino 2025 approaches the end.
The One News studio also serves as our election data monitoring center. Later on, we'll give you some information that you guys need to know before the kickoff of the midterm polls. This is Meeting de Avance.
Welcome po sa Meeting de Avance. Ito po yung special ng One News at One PH. Usually, no, kapag ganitong gabi, the last campaign night of the elections, ngayon nangyayari yung mga Meeting de Avance na tinatawag.
Yes.
Pero we realize itong week na to, nagsimula na silang gumawa ng kahit Thursday pa lang.
Oo. And I'm pretty sure logical yung mga napili nila ng mga places. They have their own reasons bakit yung Alyansa ginawa sa Mandaluyong, yung kanilang Meeting de Avance, at yung PDP laban sa Liwasang Bonifacio.
Oo. Oo, marami tayong ibibigay sa kanila ng mga paalala, no? Just reminders because it's already Saturday. On Monday, it will be the midterm elections, May 12. Sana po bumoto kayo, mga kapatid, no? Because we want a high voter turnout.
Yes.
Sabi kasi nila ang talagang survey daw ay magaganap sa Lunes.
Oo, totoo
Yung totoong
yan.
survey, final survey na ito.
So malalaman natin kung gaano ka-accurate yung mga previous survey na lumabas mula sa iba't ibang mga survey firm. Sana mas maging matalino na tayo sa pagpili sa pagkakataong ito.
Pero pag-usapan natin agad-agad yung mga survey na lumabas. Ano po? Dahil hindi naman ito dahil ito'y baka-apekto doon sa pagboto nila this Monday, hindi para magabayan din tayo kung bakit nga ba kailangan may ganito. Diba? Anyway, mga kapatid, Robin Michael Garcia is a political scientist and public affairs advisor. He earned this PhD in international politics from Fudan University in Shanghai, China. He's also a founder and chairman of WR Advisory Group, a consultancy firm that specializes po in public policy, political risk analysis, and strategic communications.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me.
So, before akala kasi natin meron pang VTR before that. Pero let's welcome to the show Robin Garcia, the President and CEO of WR Advisory Group. Robin, welcome
Hello.
to the show.
Hi, thank you very
Robin.
much. Thank you very much for
Good
having me.
evening.
Thank you.
Robin, puntahan ko na kasi
Yeah.
sa iba, no, lagi sinasabi yung mga undecided pa, kahit as late as now na magsasara na yung kampanya,
Yeah.
and sa Lunes, boboto na sila. Pero up until that moment, alam natin na may mga undecided pa, or at least may butas pa yung numbers na kanilang bobotohin. Ano? Meron ba kayo na-encounter na ganyan sa inyong pagsasurvey ito nakalipas na mga buwan?
Definitely, surveys are a snapshot of a particular period, no? So, I mean, it's not supposed to be predictive. So it's the issue is whether or not the survey will hold up until election day. No? But definitely there are a lot of unsure voters. There's still a lot of variables that will be in play, on Monday, and things can still change. But there are also some things that are stable already. So, like for example, some results in the Senate and some results in the LGU race. No. But yeah, things will definitely change, and there are a lot of variables at play.
So in a way, maka-apekto pa yung mga undecided na yan this Monday.
Definitely. The undecided voters have a lot of influence in the outcome of the elections coming into
Pero
Monday.
puntahan ko lang yung sinabi mo kanina na definitely meron ng stable doon
Correct.
sa mga lumalabas na survey. Ano tong mga specific na sinasabi mo na mga stable?
So that's why it's important to differentiate between hard votes. No, we asked that in our surveys at WR Numero, actually at WR. We asked if they will still change their minds. No? And some of them who answer that they will not change their minds, you call them hard voters. But there's still a sizable number of people who we call soft voters who may still change their minds, no? When we ask them whether they will still change their minds on election day. So that's why it's important to compare also across all of the candidates, sino yung may pinakamataas na hard voters, sino yung may pinakamaraming soft voters pa lang. No? And in our survey, actually, we've seen some very interesting results. No? So for example, si Senator Bongo has one of the highest hard voters. Ibig sabihin, hindi na siya hindi bobotohin pa. Meron na siyang solid number of votes na kahit ano mangyari, as long as they turn out on Monday, they actually vote, makukuha niya yung numero na yun, yung numbers na yun.
That's actually no surprise because he's been in the number 1, number 2 spot
Correct.
in the surveys. Of these things that you consider permanent, no? Ito na
Correct.
yung hindi gagalaw. Would you
Yeah.
agree with other analysts that say top 6, medyo sure na yan?
Yeah, in our survey, actually we've seen a resurgence of a lot of the Duterte-aligned candidates, including si Senator Bongo, something that we didn't necessarily see last year when we conducted the surveys. We feel that it might be a reflection of the current times, diba? Because the Duterte family is being persecuted through the impeachment to the ICC arrest. But the question is whether this will hold and whether this will stay until election day, or whether these are just fleeting sort of public opinions, no, coming into Monday. But as I said, particularly for Senator Bongo, there's a lot of hard voters already, and across other results, no, we've seen that consistently.
Having said that, gaano ka-importante yung mga tinatawag natin ngayon ng mga baluarte? Ganun pa rin ba siya ka-significant?
Definitely, Filipinos vote according to sociolinguistic affinities, no. So, for example, it is important to understand, particularly for this elections, itong solid north and solid south. We know that in 2022 connected sila, di ba? So, we'll see where the loyalties really stand. And actually, pwede kasing yung loyalty ng mga dating bumoto kay Marcos hindi na boboto rin sa kanya, kahit solid south. So these are things that we really need to look out for. And actually, in 2020, just to explain to you, yung 2016 na naglaban una si Lenny at si Bongbong, and 2022 na naglaban sila ulit for the presidency, maraming umalis kay Lenny. Around 20 plus provinces actually left Lenny and transferred to Bongbong. So these are things that we want to look at coming into 2025, itong senatorial elections. And now, na medyo the unity has already unraveled, no? Coming into this 2025 elections.
Yeah.
Medyo related, sorry Chiqui, yung
go ahead.
follow-up ko doon sa tanong ni Mase. Aside from Baluarte, recently, itong mga nakalipas na mga araw or linggo ay yung tinatawag na endorsement ng mga
Yes.
key,
Oo nga.
key groups at saka mga key personalities. Nakita na ba yun sa mga huling yung survey or bibiglain tayo ng mga yan sa Lunes?
Well, yung mga endorsements, ang value talaga niyan is what we call some market votes, no? So ibig sabihin, it really adds some credibility to the candidacy of a particular candidate, no? And adds some legitimacy. So, diyan yan. Like for example, recently, yung mga religious groups naglabas ng mga suporta.
Yes.
Lalabas din yan. But also there's a factor of what you call command votes. Na ibig sabihin, organizations have a very influential hold over its members, no, can really influence the outcome of the elections. And especially if nandun ka sa 8 to 14 rank, no, sa mga public opinion polls, napaka-importante ng mga ganyang suporta. No? Especially now na medyo contentious, halos within statistically tied halos lahat nung mga nasa 7 to 14. So it's really going to be a very difficult fight for those candidates.
Earlier, you did mention in passing yung solid south. I'm gonna go to solid north.
Correct.
Kasi syempre, alam naman natin, nag-aaway, well, not naman probably blatantly nag-aaway, no? But then, they're not really on the same side, no? Si PBBM and si Senator Amy Marcos. Is North still going to be solid North?
That's an excellent question. Actually, that's the problem of Amy. She seems to not be getting votes from either. I mean, it's affecting her candidacy, as you can see. Recently, she entered the Magic 12 in our survey of the possible winners in the WR Numero survey. But in the previous results, actually earlier in April, we saw that she was outside of the winning circle. So I think voters are a little bit confused about which side she's really on. Diba? On one hand, she has the Marcos name, but at the same time, she's also supporting the Duterte camp. So I think it matters. The consistency of message really affects her in her last name.
Masyado na bang late in the game when she made her decision to clarify her position?
Well, not necessarily. We saw that she was, already fighting the brother in some issues, no? Si President Marcos, and currently, medyo klaro na nga sa lahat, and she withdrew from the Allianza slate recently. So clear na yung loyalties niya, but at the same time she still has the Marcos name, no? So that definitely affects her candidacy and the consistency of her support base.
Robin, following the endorsement of Vice President Sara Duterte, no, yung rank ni Senator Amy Marcos medyo umangat, no, sa recent surveys. Would you say she has a very big chance to get into the Magic 12?
She has some chances, and we've seen that she has increased her number after the endorsement, and so did a lot of the Duterte aligned candidates across the board. Actually, in Duterte, and we saw a lot of support for them. And we'll see. It remains to be seen whether Amy Marcos will be a big winner and receiver of the Duterte voter base.
Robin, I'd like to ask you about vote-rich provinces, but later we will discuss that thoroughly. But for now, let's pause our conversation. Preparations are in full swing in Ilocos Norte for Bilang Pilipino 2025, where President Bongbong Marcos is expected to cast his vote. Live from Ilocos Norte, Mobile Journal, Julie Baisa. Julie.
Yes, Ate Masay, inihahanda na nga yung mga eskwelahan na gagamitin bilang voting precinct sa darating na eleksyon dito sa Ilocos Norte at sa Ilocos Sur. Partikular na sinilip natin kanina yung Mariano Marcos Memorial Elementary School kung saan nga nakatakdang bumoto si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa Lunes. Yung polling precinct kung saan boboto si PBBM, nakaayos na yung mga upuan. Dumating na rin daw yung vote counting machines doon sa eskwelahan noon pang Mayo 6. Pagdating naman sa seguridad, may mga tauhan na ng PNP na nakapwesto doon sa eskwelahan. Umiikot din yung police mobile sa lahat ng mga paaralan na gagamitin bilang polling precinct sa Lunes. Sa usapang eleksyon pa rin, may inalabas na vlog si Pangulong Bongbong Marcos ngayong araw bilang pagsuporta pa rin yan sa mga kandidato sa ilalim ng Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas. Sinama nga niya sa vlog si former DILG Secretary Benher Abalos at doon niresponse nila yung iba't ibang mga issue kung ano yung magiging hakbang sa iba't ibang mga usapin gaya na lang sa transportasyon at saka sa presyo ng pagkain o pangunahing bilihin. Bukod dyan, dito naman sa local candidate sa Ilocos Norte, nagpalitan ng posisyon sina Governor Matthew Manotoc at si Vice Governor Cecilia Marcos. Si Manotoc na yung tatakbo ngayon na vice-gobernador, unopposed siya, walang kalaban. At si Vice Gov naman, Cecilia Marcos, yung kakandidato bilang governor. Meron siyang kalaban, isang independent candidate na si Joy Butay. Hindi lang si Manotoc yung unopposed sa mga Marcos, unopposed din ang panganay ng Pangulo na si Congressman Sandro Marcos na tumatakbo kinatawan ng 1st District ng Ilocos Norte. Dito naman sa Lawag specifically, parang Marcos versus Marcos pa rin yung labanan kasi kandidato si incumbent Mayor Michael Marcos Quillon na first cousin ni PBBM. Pero hindi siya yung inendorso ng Pangulo. Ang inendorso, manok ng Pangulo sa eleksyon dito, yung kalaban niya si Brian Alcid. Ang sabi ng mga lokal na nakausap natin dito, dikdikan daw yung labanan kasi malaking bagay yung pag-endorso ng Pangulo kay Alcid. Pero at the same time, incumbent na itong si Quillon at marami din naman daw yung natutuwa or nasiyahan doon sa kanyang pamumuno.
Julie, very brief lang. Aside from President Bongbong Marcos, sino pa yung inaasahan natin na makakasama niya na bumoto dyan sa Mariano Marcos Memorial Elementary School? I wonder kung saan nakaschedule bumoto si Senator Amy.
Si Senator Amy Marcos, iba yung eskwelahan niya. Dito siya sa Lawag, Ilocos Sur. Si PBBM kasi ay sa Batak. So dito sa Cabeza Elementary School boboto si Senator Amy. Inikutan din natin yan kanina, Ate Mate. And kaya yung ibang eskwelahan, naghahanda rin sila. Hindi lang natin alam kung magkakasabay sila na morning. Magkalayo din naman, so hindi sila magkakasalubong definitely.
All right. Thank you for that report, Mobile Journal Julie Baisa.
Halikan na natin si Robin. Alam ko meron ka nabitin na tanong eh.
Oo nga. Kasi kanina, Robin, yung sinasabi ko, yung mga vote-rich provinces. Of course, number one na dyan yung Cebu, pinag-aagawan ng mga politicians. You mentioned earlier, meron tayong solid north, meron tayong solid south. Saan natin nakikita ang leaning ng Cebu? Although meron ng mga endorsements yung kanilang local candidates, but I wonder kung meron pa rin doon ng mga solid sa Duterte.
Actually, may tinatawag tayo na Meridian Wall, no? So, ibig sabihin, ito yung mga nasa gitna na mga probinsya na nakikita natin sa Visayas. A lot of them are in Visayas. Many of them are supporters of the progressives or the liberal. But we've seen that also in previous elections, Cebu has come out in favor of the Duterte and the Marcoses. No? So we'll see if this will hold and if this will be consistent for 2025. But other vote-rich areas, are not just in Visayas, are also in Calabarzon. And itong Calabarzon, NCR, tsaka Region 3, these are actually the three most vote-rich regions naman, no? Which make up around almost 40% of all of the votes. So if you win there, ibig sabihin you have a very good chance of winning the presidency or any national race, no? May tinatawag tayo dito in the literature of political science na medyo scholarship. Tawag dito yung Lingayen-Lucena corridor. So if you focus on this particular belt, no, of supporters of areas, then you would have a good chance of winning the presidency or in this case the midterm senatorial elections.
How do you see voter turnout becoming this 2025 midterm elections? Kasi hindi daw lumalampas talaga yun usually at 90% below 90% daw talaga. And
Correct.
what factors will be influencing voter turnout this year?
Correct. Actually, that's a very good question. The 2022 elections was actually the highest voter turnout in recent history compared with 2016 and 2019. No? And then, whether or not that will hold in 2025 remains to be seen. But there are definitely several factors that are at play. How contentious the issues are, how much they care about the candidates that they're voting for, how much they care about the communities and sort of the issues, and the intensity of the support for specific candidates. No? So, and we've seen that, for this particular elections, specifically for those aligned with Duterte, the intensity is actually quite high. So we'll see if the same results hold from 2022.
We will get back to our guest, Robin Garcia, in a bit. In the meantime, this update, senatorial candidate Kiko Pangilinan returned to Quezon City to end his campaign caravan this morning. We have mobile journalist Ivan Tarinque for the details. Hi, Ivan. Can you give us some details about the caravan that happened earlier?
Chiqui, kaninang umaga, hindi lang mga tao ang dumagsa sa Villa Verde Subdivision Basketball Court, kundi pati mga performances na tila mini concert ang dating. Ginanap kasi doon ang last final leg ng Wow Caravan nang muli tumatakbo sa pagkasenador na si Kiko Pangilinan. Mula Pampanga, Bulacan hanggang Quezon City ang kanyang inikot kaninang umaga para kumbinsihin ang mga botanteng ibalik siya sa Senado. Present din kanina sa event ang ilang local candidates mula sa Quezon City, kabilang na ang dating aktor at re-electionist na si Alfred Vargas. Hindi rin nagpahuli si Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte na nagpakita ng kanyang suporta kay Pangilinan. Pasado alas 10:30 ng umaga nang dumating si Pangilinan sa lugar kasama ang kanyang pamangkin at aktor na si Donnie Pangilinan. Pagpasok pa lang nila, hiyawan at palakpakan ang sumalubong sa kanila. Ayon kay Pangilinan, malaki ang naitutulong ng last-minute endorsement ng mga local officials sa kanyang kampanya. Nabanggit na rin kasi kanina yung mga ilang lugar na gaya ng Cebu na biggest voting province at Cavite. Yung endorsement daw ng mga probinsyang iyon ay malaking boost sa kampanya sa muling pagbabalik sa Senado. Sa pinakahuling survey kasi, hindi pa rin kabilang si Pangilinan sa tinatawag na Magic 12. Pero umaasa siyang may surpresa na darating na halalan dahil sa lumalakas na suporta sa kanya. Para daw man sa mga tumatakbo sa government positions, sa Lunes ang Judgment Day. At ayon nga sa kanya, maraming beses na raw na nagkaroon ng surpresa sa eleksyon kaya't nananatili ang kanyang pag-asa. Chiqui?
Aside from thanking yung mga nag-endorso, meron ba siyang mga last minute na mga pasabi that stood out to you?
Yes, Chiqui, kanina inuulit niya na itutuloy lang daw nila yung kanilang mga hindi na ituloy na programa noong tumatakbo siya sa pagka-vice presidente, sa pagka-senador. Isa nga dun sa nabanggit niya na gusto niyang isulong talaga sa oras na maibalik siya sa Senado is itong libreng almusal. Sabi niya kasi tinatamaan nito two birds in one stone dahil nga natutulungan nga nito yung mabawasan yung kakulangan sa pagkain ng mga estudyante. Plus, pwede rin daw mapunta kasi yung profits o yung makukuha dito sa mga farmers at sa mga fishermen. So, yun yung kanyang isinusulong na gusto niyang gawin sa oras na maibalik siya sa Senado. Chiqui?
Okay. Thank you very much, mobile journalist Ivan Tarinque.
Actually, marami akong tanong about the campaign of Kiko Pangilinan kay Robin, Pero siguro gawin natin para hindi mabitin. Let's do it after this break, So we'll just pause for a quick break. Don't go away. Meeting the Avance. We'll be right back.
Nagkampanya tayo para alisin ang mga bastos at misogynist at mga anti-women na tumatakbo, kumakandidato sa eleksyong 2025.
Hindi mo kakainin ang isinuka mo para lamang sa politika. Hindi ganyan ang legasiya ng aking ama.
So ito, you're still watching Meeting the Avance 2025. Nabitin tayo, no? Because pinapakita natin yung mga tinatawag na Meeting the Avance ng iba't ibang mga kandidato sa bawat segment natin. Pero before tayo nag-break, we were talking about former Senator Kiko Pangilinan. So Robin is still here with us. And kamusta ko kasi si Kiko pumapasok lalo sa inyo, sa inyong survey. No? Tapos parang mawawala. So how do we read into that movement?
Yeah, I think si Senator Kiko has been struggling to really solidify his position in the winning circle. No, but actually, as early as late February, we've seen that he could be part of the Magic 12 or the top 12 for the Senate. But again, sometimes he falls off, sometimes he comes in, and in other surveys, we've seen that he's not particularly consistent. Siguro some weaknesses in the campaign. It's a lot of it will have to do with digital, no? And a lot of it will have to bank on the voter base of Lenny Robredo, really. But he's not the only one competing for that voter base. So there are other individuals who are part of the progressives. For example, si Senator Bamakino, who's actually getting a bigger share of the votes, no, in the top 12. So, yeah, I think there's still a lot of things to improve in terms of narratives and in terms of the way in which the campaign was conducted.
You mentioned Senator Bamakino, and he has been talking about free education. No, aside from him, because a lot of candidates have been pushing for different policy issues. What policy issues have you seen really resonated with voters this election?
Well, consistently you see issues of material depravity, solutions to material depravity. Kasi that's still the top issues of voters. And has always been the top issues of voters in a developing country. But actually, we saw that inflation really came up, was revealed to be at the top of the votes or the concerns of voters. No? So, and definitely candidates do have a, they've consistently spoken about this, and including some negative campaigning. Nakita nyo nga si Vice President Sara Duterte, has been speaking against the inability of the Marcos regime in solving certain material woes or certain issues of poverty and economics.
And pahabol dyan, because I really want to understand how majority of Filipino voters think for the 2025 midterm elections.
Yeah.
Kasi in the previous elections, parang more on personality-based
Correct.
tayo. I don't know if there are changes now. Are we more focused on issues, on social concerns, or kino-consider pa rin talaga natin yung mga personalities
Yeah,
involved?
actually recently I was asked, kasi polling firms, they rank what are the top policy issues. But sometimes, and many times actually, voters don't really vote based on this. They also vote based on social linguistic affinities, whether they feel closely related to a particular candidate, whether the ideas resonate, regardless of whether it really solves their policy positions. No? But broadly, what we've seen in the surveys, particularly from WR Numero, is that people do care about change. They do care about participating in elections because they feel the need to enhance democracy. They feel the need to protect the country, and enhance the country, and develop the country. And this is what they continue to hope for from candidates, but not necessarily through platforms. No? Sometimes it's relatability. Sometimes it's this vague idea of strength, right? So, pwedeng ganon din, that they respond to personalities, not just dahil sikat, but also because a particular candidate projects the leadership styles that they want from a political leader. So, pwedeng may ganon din na aspect.
Aside from the influential factors that you've mentioned, no, like yung relatability, for example, how have disinformation and social media shaped voters' decisions this year?
A lot, actually. This has been a consistent study. Voters are aware that disinformation exists, but are still continually susceptible to disinformative and misinformative information. So they are still susceptible. And there are generations that are very difficult to, who find it difficult to to identify what's fake news and what's not. No? And we still see that very prevalent in social media right now. There's a scientific term, no? So ito yung sinasabing availability bias. And that's important because voters make decisions based on what is the most available information to them. And the algorithm reinforces certain information over others. That's why in social media, right? That's why yan yung mga cognitive biases na meron ng tao as human beings. You know, and that also travels into making political decisions. So that's why Filipinos and humans in general are very susceptible to fake news.
But would you say yung impact niya in general, no, is very big or negligible lang?
It is very big. Digital has played a lot, specifically from 2016 onwards, no, in terms of political campaigns. So it's not just about traditional media and not just about ground war. You also have what you call digital war, and that's why social media has been quite influential in elections.
Kaya marami ring nag-hire ng trolls.
Totoo yan.
True.
Yeah.
Pero ito, sorry Robin, pero staple question bago maghalala nito. Ano? So, any fearless forecast, especially from your group, sa magiging resulta sa Lunes?
I like this question.
I think a lot of the Alianza members of the Alianza state will do well, but not necessarily because of Marcos, right? But because they have already
May brand na
popular
sila. May brand
names
na.
to begin with, right? But we also see some very influential members of the Duterte aligned slate who will do very well, particularly Bongo and Bato de la Rosa. And then, of course, you also have two possible members of the Progressive Party or the Progressive Coalition, Bam Aquino and Kiko Pangilinan. But it remains to be seen whether or not Amy Marcos and the other independents will get that spot in the bottom cluster of the senatorial elections.
Hopefully, after the elections, mga 2 days after, pwede na natin ulit imbitahin si Robin para sa STL or sa other programs ng One News, One PH para makrunch yung numbers o yung resulta. No? So we hope to have you back, Robin. And thank you
Good to be here.
for joining us tonight.
Thank you,
Okay.
Robin.
Thank you. That was Robin Garcia, founder and chairman of WR Advisory Group. At segue po tayo dito sa Quezon City dahil nagkaroon po yung serbisyo Bayan Party List, yung kanilang mga kandidato sa SBP. Sila ay currently actually holding their meeting de Avance sa Quezon City. Mayor Joy Belmonte and Vice Mayor Gian Soto were present at the said gathering. So for the latest, puntahan natin si mobile journalist Isa Abelio. Isa, kamusta dyan? Okay, hintayin natin na maayos yung audio ni Isa, no? Dahil siya ay currently ay nagko-cover doon sa Quezon City. Alam mo naman ang Quezon City, isa sa pinakamalaking lugar dito sa Metro Manila at hihintayin natin kung ano may yung resulta dyan.
Vote-rich din yun. One of the vote-rich cities.
Actually, pinakamalaking population in Metro
Correct.
Manila.
That's true, that's true.
Pinakamarami ring distrito. Tama.
Yes.
So,
Kasi,
talagang aabangan
Chiqui,
natin yan.
subukan natin ulit si Mobile Journal Isabella Abelio sa kanyang report from Quezon City. Kamusta dyan, Isa?
Hello po. Hello po.
Yes.
Tayo ay nandito sa Labayani Street sa Fairview District 5, Quezon City para sa meeting de Avance ng serbisyo sa Bayan Party ni Mayor Joy Belmonte. Actually, nagsimula na ang programa at ang mga konsehal ay nandito, kompleto po sila. Inaantay lang po natin dumating si Mayor Joy at si Vice Mayor Gian Soto. Sinulan nila ang programa with Konsehala Shay Liban na binida niya ang kanyang mga programa na ginawa niya nung kanyang 2 unang termino, katulad ng pagbigay ng maintenance na gamot sa mga pangangailangan at kanyang mga constituents. Binigyan diin niya rin na ang kanyang advokasya ay magiging boses ng mga kababaihan. Sunod naman doon ay humarap rin si Konsehal Ram Medalla na nasa kanyang huling termino rin at hindi nga mapigilang maging emosyonal habang nagpapasalamat sa mga taga-suporta at mga constituents dito sa Quezon City. So hindi na niya nasabi yung kanyang speech kasi naiyak-iyak na lang po siya at naging emotional siya kasi sobrang na naramdaman niya yung pagmamahal ng mga constituents dito sa District 5. At saka kakatapos lang po ni Konsehala Aiko Melendez na nasa kanyang tumatakbo para sa kanyang ikalawang termino at binidaran niya ang mga kanyang current projects at yung mga plano niyang gawin sa entertainment at sa mga community. So again, like I mentioned earlier, na inaasahan po natin na dumating si Mayor Joy at si Vice Mayor Gia na nasa District 2 meeting the advances sa Commonwealth ngayon. So ngayon actually, fun fact lang, District 5 ang actually pinakamalaking distrito dito sa Quezon City and ito ay isa sa mga pinaka-vote rich na districts dito. Kaya inaasahan natin ang good voter turnout pagdating ng May 12. Thank you.
So, siyempre, ang tanong ko rin kay Isa, parang pang-fun din, ano? Usually, ang Quezon City, star-studded ang mga meeting de Avance dyan. Kamusta, no? Yan ang dahilan ba't ang dami pumupunta ng mga botante, no? Sa kanilang mga meeting de Avance. Marami bang artista nagpunta, Isa?
Actually, kanina po ay dumayo dito si Macoy De Leon on behalf of Senator Amy Marcos. Tapos nandito rin po kanina si Lani Mercado Revilla on behalf of Senator Bong Revilla na sila ay nagbigay ng kanilang plataforma at nagbigay ng speech on behalf of them. Tapos yung anak rin po ni Senator Francis Tolentino na si Michael Francis Tolentino ay dumayo rin dito para magbigay ng kanyang speech.
Okay. Thank you, mobile journalist Isa Abelio. Anyway, before natin puntahan yung next item, sabihin ko lang na ang Quezon City sa sobrang laki at votage, ano, may kanya-kanyang meeting ni Avance ang bawat distrito.
Totoo. Yes. Anim, di ba? Ang kanilang mga distrito.
So kailangan
So,
natin
ganun kalaki
bisitahin ng mga reporters natin yan. Ano. Meanwhile, Senator Nancy Binay leads the grand meeting de Avance of the United Nationalist Alliance Party or Team Una in Makati City. For the details, we have mobile journalist Arles de los Santos. Arles, kamusta dyan?
Magandang gabi sa inyo, Jove. Diyan sa studio noon, nandito tayo ngayon sa kahabaan ng Metropolitan Avenue sa Makati, kung saan ay kasalukuyang idinaraos ang meeting de Avance ng Team Una at sulong Dignidad Party List. Kasama din dito na present ang dating Vice Presidente na si Jove Binay, ang kapatid ni Nancy Binay na si Junjun at ang kanilang ina na si Elenita Binay. Jove, sa kanilang talumpati, naging malaman ang mga pahayag nila ng mga Binay clan na kasama dito dahil hindi raw dapat better na serbisyo ang matatanggap lang ng mga taga Makati o tinatawag ding Makatizen, kundi ang best na services daw. Binigyan din ni Mayor candidate ni Nancy Binay na sila daw na magkakapatid, ang 5 kasi sila, no, Jove? Nabanggit dito, syempre may hinahanap na isa na ngayon nga si Abby Binay na tumatakbo bilang senador at tumatakbo naman sa pagka-mayor din ang kanyang asawa na si Luis Campos. Binigyan din ni Senator Nancy Binay na mahalaga daw ang pagkakabuo ng kanilang pamilya na may paninindigan at ang kanilang pagnanais na makapag-serbisyo sa mga Makati, sa mga taga Makati. Ngayon ay 23 barangay na lamang ang sakop ng Makati mula sa dating 33 at hindi man daw ito nakikitang rason para itigil ang kanilang pagsaserbisyo at kung manalo man daw ay ito daw ang magiging karangalan para sa kanila. Sinundan ang pagtatapos ng talumpati ni Senator Nancy Binay ng pag-awit ng happy birthday dahil sa Lunes daw ay kanya ng kaarawan at humihirit siya sa mga umattend dito sa kanya meeting de Avance na yun na raw ang iregalo sa kanya. Sa tala, Jove, ng mga organizer ay nasa 15 to 20,000 na mga dumalo dito sa meeting de Avance ng slate ni Senator Nancy Binay.
Arles, meron lang akong tanong tungkol sa pamilya Binay, ano? Because we saw former Vice President Binay campaign nung nakalipas sa mga linggo. Pero kamusta siya? No? Marami rin ang concern sa kanyang health, yung kanyang pagdalo ngayon.
Actually, Jove, no, masigla si dating Vice Presidente Jove Binay at sa katotohanan ay nagbigay pa nga siya ng isang awitin. Medyo nasaktuhan kasi na mayroong performer nung siya ay pumasok sa entablado kaya medyo napalaban si VP Binay. Pero kalusugan naman daw niya ay maayos kaya nakakasama siya sa mga nagdaan na kampanya ni Senator Nancy Binay.
Okay. Thank you, mobile journalist Arles de los Santos.
Actually, isa talaga yung Makati sa mga binabantayan natin na pinakamainit kasi ang magkalaban, ano bang tawag doon?
Mag-in-law.
In-law.
Mag-in-law.
Tama,
Oo,
diba?
mag-in-law
Tapos,
sila.
pero hindi lang Makati Dito lang sa Metro Manila, ang dami. Mainit din yung laban sa Marikina.
Oo,
Mga dating
lugar nyo.
magkakakampi na nag-aaway-away at saka yung mga asa-asawa yung tumatakbo.
Oo.
Hindi katulad dito sa Mandaluyong. Parang hindi sila nag-aaway-aaway. Sunod-sunod lang.
Ano lang?
Pare-pareho sila ng apelido. So,
Anyway, marami pa tayong pupuntahan mamaya. No?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's time to pause for a quick break. This is Meeting the Avance. We'll be right back.
Bilang Pilipino.
Nag-adapt ito doon sa bagong sistema, which is lahat ng rally covered. Not only ng mainstream media, but particularly the social media.
Ayaw natin ng ugaling pusit, tama ba? Kaya naging tagumpay eleksyong ito ay ang pag-i-impeach sa isang asal pusit.
And we're back. You're still watching Meeting the Avance 2025. Kanina pa natin pinag-uusapan, yung tungkol dun sa mga vote-rich na mga lugar sa buong kapuluan, sa buong Pilipinas. Ano po? So at this point, let's scratch the numbers and data pertaining to the upcoming elections. Ano? At yan ay isa sa magiging role ni Chiqui for us sa buong election coverage natin. So let's head on over to Chiqui Vergel sa ating touchscreen.
Yes, Jove, Mase, 68.4 million registered voters na mga Pilipino, no? And this doesn't even include the 1.3 million overseas registered Filipino voters. Pinakamataas ito in the history since the 90s. In fact, back in 2022, during the presidential elections, 65.7 lang yung registered voters natin, no? Compared to now. So we're up by 2.6 million. So let's take a look at the vote-rich provinces over here. I'm gonna start off with Cavite. Cavite, 45 million registered voters. I'm gonna follow it up with Cebu. Of course, very vote-rich with 3.4 million registered voters. I just want to give you guys a quick note. Cebu now, no? Cebu province is Cebu and Bohol. Kasi Negros Island region is now Negros Oriental, Negros Occidental, and Siquijor. But regardless, kahit na-separate na po ito, this is still very vote-rich, very influential still. So if you get numbers in Cebu and in the remaining vote-rich provinces, well, that adds up to your numbers come election day. Kaya tinatrabaho talaga yung mga vote-rich provinces ng mga candidates. Let's look at Bulacan. Bulacan has 2.17 registered voters. But guys, it doesn't mean that if they're registered, they will actually show up come election day, no? Kaya nga we want a high voter turnout. When you say voter turnout, let's say you have 10 registered voters, no? Pero kung 6 lang ang pumunta sa presinto at bumoto, edi 60% ka lang na voter turnout, di ba? So that's what we actually want, a high voter turnout on Monday, May 12. So it will depend on a lot of factors, kung tinatamad sila or if they still feel very strongly about voting or if they still have faith in the elections.
Okay. So, ang pinaset ni Chiqui ngayon ay yung kung ano-ano yung mga vote-rich provinces natin, yung mga area na babantayan natin come election day, dyan bubuhos yung mga boto o magagaling yung mga boto. Pero nandiyan na rin lang si Chiqui dahil siya rin ay magtatao dyan sa ating LED wall na yan, touchscreen, Alam namin na marami pa kayong data na ipe-present dyan, right?
Oo. Currently, dito makikita nyo, when we click on that, for example, Batangas, nakikita natin total voters, registered voters is 1.96 million. But come election day, it will be broken down here in detail. But obviously right now, wala pa tayong numbers, no? Kasi hindi pa live. So we just have the vote-rich provinces where you can actually look at the breakdown of voters per province. The provinces that yung mga kandidato talagang nakatutok, tinatrabaho po talaga because it will affect their numbers come election day.
So, yan ay aantabayan na namin, Chiqui, dahil isa sa mga paborito namin, at least si Mase, sa nakalipas namin pagtitimon dito sa election
coverage.
Yung interactive side nitong ating coverage.
Exactly. And it's also good to note na nakikita natin yung interest ng mga voters for midterm elections because if we take a look at the trend, yung mga previous elections, usually talaga mas interesado yung mga voters kapag presidential elections.
Top post talaga
Yun talaga yung mas malaki yung voters turnout. Pero ngayon, nakikita rin natin yung interest nila, mas malaki rin yung bilang ng mga voters. Although pag tiningnan din kasi natin, every 3 years yung mga nagpaparegister, tumataas din talaga kasi nadadagdagan yung mga 18 years old and up.
Yes.
Diba? So hopefully, aside sa nadadagdagan at nasa 64 point something
68.4 million
registered voters na tayo, bumoto rin sana sila lahat.
Although hindi naman natin, hope natin na 100% sila boboto. Pero usually, hindi bumoboto po lahat. Usually nga, based on history, no? Historical ito, no? Hindi lumalampas ng 90% ang voter turnout. When you say voter turnout, yun yung mga talagang pumupunta dun sa mga presinto, bumoto versus the total number of voters talaga. So, ilang porsyento lang yan. Usually, less than 90%. Hopefully, it's more than 90% this year.
Oo,
We'll
yung
see.
mga local voters natin.
Yeah.
Kasi yung mga overseas absentee voters, mas mababa yung percentage ng mga
correct.
talagang bumoboto. But now that online voting is already available, pwede na silang gumamit ng internet, hopefully mas mataas din yung percentage ng mga boboto.
Yung sinasabi, no, Mase at Chiqui, na laging mas mataas talaga yung yung interest ng mga botante kapag presidential elections. Totoo naman yun, ano?
Yes.
Usually kapag midterm, ang focus niyan ay mga lokal, ano? So yung mga mayoralty tsaka yung mga governors yung pinagtutuunan ng pansin. Pero ngayon medyo nahati yung atensyon kasi may mga issues na na nagpe-persist pa kahit itong nakalipas na mga buwan leading to the election. We have the ICC issue, yung impeachment na nakahang ngayon doon sa Senate, at saka yung bangayan.
Yun.
Yeah.
Feeling, nagsimula talaga siya doon sa fallout
Yeah.
Totoo.
Dahil doon sa nangyari na mga gulo sa Congress, yung mga pagbe-break ng alliance, hanggang
Yes.
dumiretso na ng ICC. So makikita rin natin kung gaano ka-importante itong 2025 midterm elections doon sa magiging resulta sa 2028 presidential elections.
That's
Yes.
true.
Diba?
Oo.
Influence ang pinag-uusapan.
And even not that far, kahit sa impeachment pa lang, yung coming
Oh,
impeachment,
yes.
di ba? Kasi mga senador, bagong ihahalal po natin ng mga senador, sila po ang magiging hurado during the impeachment trial for Vice President Sara Duterte dun sa confidential funds.
Exactly.
That's true. Okay, some reminders I think na kailangan natin ibigay before anything else, yung mga obvious pero mukhang kailangan natin ipaalala. So yung mga katanungan, kasi kahit ngayon, kapag titignan ko yung ating live stream, ay maraming mga basic yung question. So para lang sa impormasyon ng mas nakararami, so pag sinabi, when is the election? Sa Lunes sa po yan, May 12, 2025. Mase,
Yes.
baka naman iba, tamarin pa na pumunta ng maaga.
Ay, wag na. Kasi
Okay.
mahaba naman po yung ating regular voting hours. That's from 7 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock in the evening. Pero meron pong mas maaga dyan. Yung early voting hours po natin ay magsisimula ng alas 5 ng umaga hanggang alas 7 ng umaga. Yan po ay para sa mga senior citizens, persons with disabilities at saka yung mga pregnant voters. Pero hindi ibig sabihin na hindi na kayo pwedeng bumoto from 7 a.m. onwards.
Pwede.
Pwede pa rin. Pero ipaprioritize lang kayo from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Wala kayong ibang kasabay. Kayo lang. And of course, kapag yung mga senior citizens natin, yung inyo pong mga presinto ay nasa ground floor, hindi nyo na po kailangan pumunta doon sa mga priority precinct, yung mga may mga nag-a-assist. Pero yung mga nasa second floor, yung mga nasa higher floors po ng presinto, you have an option na magpatulong doon po sa mga priority voters po natin.
Yeah, at saka merong voting sa mall. Don't forget.
Meron.
Yung
Nako,
shading. Nako,
Oh, yes.
this is very
Issue yan.
important, mga
Okay.
kapatid. Casting your vote, shading, very important po. Actually, 15% lang dapat. Hindi, 15% pwede na. Hindi
Actually,
dapat.
tuldukan lang sa experience natin.
Oo.
Tuldok
Kasi
lang.
may marker, so you don't need to bring any writing material, no pencils, no pens. Meron po kayong, meron ipoprovide na marker para sa inyo. Isang tuldok na, more than 15% na. Make sure to fully shade the circle, no? If pwede naman, mas maganda. Beside the name of the candidate you will vote for. Do not draw a star, do not draw a heart, do not draw a square, or anything else on the circles.
Oo, basta kahit na anong mark, aside
Oo.
from shading.
Shade lang.
Meron din po tayong pinapaalala na mga bawal gawin sa loob po ng presinto. Kabilang na po dyan yung pag-take ng pictures doon po sa ating mga balota. Ang reminder po siya ng Comelec, it's okay na gumawa ng mga kodigo, but do not use your cellphone na pang-take ng pictures natin, pang-selfie. So gawa na lang tayo ng kodigo.
Oh, para mabilis.
Oo, para
Kodigo.
makaboto
Oo.
tayo agad.
I think kailangan mo sabihin, Chiqui, yung law that prohibits them,
Yes.
Lalo sa shading.
Oo, merong law po, no? Sinabi nga ni Jove, no, that prohibits any other distinguishing marks on the ballot except for shading the circles. Again, no other marks, no stars, no hearts, just shading of the circle. 15% of the circle, pwede na po, mga kapatid.
Otherwise, hindi babasahin.
Yes.
That's true.
Oh, and we have to remind them pala, yung mga senators, 12 or less, pwede pong less, pwede pong less.
Abi,
12
tinatanong
or
nga yun
less.
ng mga viewers natin, yung row 4 natin, pati si
Oo.
Barbie. Kung paano kung hindi pa niya napupuno.
Okay lang yun. Eh
Okay.
kung ayaw mo namang iboto, wag mo nang markahan. 12
Wag lang sosobra.
or less, wag lang sosobra. Party list, isa lang po. Ballot prone to overvote because of ink bleeding, like we were talking about, no? Comelec insisted not true. Ballots are ink absorbent and compatible with the official marking pen. This is in response to online advice that you should only dot the circle, not fully shade, as the ink will bleed anyway. Oo, pagka dot mo kasi, medyo magsispread pa yung ink. Oo.
Ito importante yung resibo. Di ba sinasabi ng lahat? Resibo.
Correct. Ito reminder mga kapatid, all voters should be given a voter receipt after casting their vote. It has a QR code where votes could be verified, but the Comelec also clarified it can't be scanned by the voters themselves. And para naman po dun sa mga election returns, when polls closed, the automated counting machines or ACMs print copies of election returns which will reflect the result in their precincts. Yung mga ERs natin.
Yes.
For the first batch, 9 copies will be printed, the 9th of which will be posted outside the precinct. So makikita natin. Afterward, the results of the election will be transmitted and 21 more copies of ERs will be printed.
ERs, speaking of ERs will have 3 QR codes. Yung una po, result of voting for senator. The second one is for the party list. Ang pangatlo, details of the precinct. Clustered precinct ID, number of voters, number of ballots counted, number of rejected ballots, and voter turnout.
Di ba? Ang dami natin paalala. Pero siyempre, kung hindi nyo pa nakuha po yun, yan naman ay pinopost namin sa Facebook page po ng One News at 1PH. Hindi lang, pati sa News 5.
Yes.
So nakalagay po yan, mga kapatid, para po kayo ay magabayan sa araw na iyon. And also, yung mga resultang sinasabi namin, lahat, mapapanood nyo dito. Kasi 31 hours tayo, hindi ba?
Dire-diretso, walang tulugan yan.
So makikita nyo yung resulta rito, no? Real time at saka syempre yung pag kina-crunch na yung numbers ay yung kung ano yung resulta sa given time. Mapapanood nyo po sa aming coverage sa mga kapatid.
Lahat.
So, don't forget to watch us sa darating na Lunes.
Actually,
Okay.
maaga
Sige
tayo
pa.
magsisimula, di ba?
Maaga.
Alas 5
5
ng
a.m.
umaga nakatutok. Pero para po dun sa mga kapatid natin, na mga reporters, as early as 3 in the morning, nasa field na yan, nagkalat na yan sa kalsada para tutukan kung ano po yung mga nangyayari sa ating mga presinto, sa Comelec, maging nandun po sa probinsya, kahapon. Nagsili para na yung mga teams natin para bantayan yung iba't ibang panig ng Pilipinas.
Hindi na namin sila nakita sa newsroom. Nandun na
Hindi
sila.
na.
Maski mga mojos, nandun na sila sa mga lugar na iyon.
Alright.
Okay?
And that wraps up our pre-election coverage.
This is Meeting de Avance.
Join us on Monday as Signal, 1PH, 1 News, Media Quest, TV5, True FM, PLDT, Smart, The Philippine Star, Filipino Star ngayon, Business World, The Freeman, and Think Ka Muna all join forces to give you our intensified 31-hour non-stop coverage on the midterm elections. Kita-kita po tayo sa Lunes.